Hello and welcome to Dear Franny, the podcast of uncommon conversations about love. I'm your host, Francesca Hoagie. In this episode, I interview Winter Mitchell-Rohrbaugh. Winter is a digital strategist. She's a journalist. She's a podcaster in her own right. She has 2 decades of experience working in the entertainment industry, and she works with some of the biggest brands and biggest celebrities in the world, including Jennifer Lopez, Steven Tyler, many others. She has great stories about her many years of experience in Hollywood. She's a true insider, and she works with influencers, and she's just really brilliant at what she does, and she's a hilarious person. And this interview is so interesting, and it's kind of a different episode because it's really Winter telling me her love story, and her love story is a story that should not have a happy ending. Like when you hear this story and how she and her husband met and their journey to I Do and the life that they've built for themselves today, it's pretty extraordinary. If it was a movie, you'd be like, this is so unrealistic, but it's not a movie, it's real life. So of course, this Hollywood insider has a total Hollywood love story, complete with happy ending. And we also get into talking about what it's like for her as a self-proclaimed militant Black woman being married to a white man and lots of other things. So this is a really hilarious and entertaining conversation with Winter Mitchell-Rohrbaugh. And without further ado, please enjoy Winter Mitchell-Rohrbaugh.
Yes, you said it perfectly.
Okay, good.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being on the show. You are a newlywed.
Am I still a newlywed after a year?
Yeah, I think so.
It feels like we've been married for 10 years. It really does. We've known each other for 7, so now it'll be 8 next year. So it feels like a decade.
Yeah. I love your love story. Do you want to share it with the listeners?
Yes. So Alan is my husband, and Alan and I were co-workers. We were co-workers. We didn't even know we were co-workers when we both started working at this company. I think I worked there for maybe 2 months before he got there. And I worked at this company called Spin Media that did digital media management for large-scale websites, news media sites. And I was in charge of the arm that managed celebrity websites. So I managed Snooki and the Kardashians and Real Housewives, those types. And my department was messy. It was one of those situations where it was the last time, I think, before the Me Too era sort of splayed across the world, just what women go through in the workplace. I think it was the last place where I felt like I could be myself. And in being myself, it was always very controversial because I don't like when men talk shit, and I don't like when men try to get in your way. I'm very much like a steamroller that way. And I really cared about what I was doing, and I cared about what I was building, and I cared about, the team that I had. And this is where it gets really interesting in particular. So I'm working at this company, and, I'm always trying to find ways for us to make money. And part of the way to make money was to see what the traffic was like what was the traffic like on these sites so we can get better advertising. So one day I finally saw the numbers after demanding them forever. The fact that I ran a department and had to demand to see numbers.
That's crazy.
It's crazy. Well, the company was shady. So one day I just turned to my coworker in my office. We shared an office, coworker Jared. And I go, I just need to find out who manages these numbers so I can get the real scoop on what's going on. And he's like, oh, you should go talk to, there's a woman named Susanna who runs, and she's a lovely friend of ours, and she runs the analytics department, and she's down the hall in the big office where everybody's sitting around her. And I was like, okay. And it's one of those open space offices. So we were on an entire floor at 64 Sunset. And I had to walk down the hall, and I walked down the hall, and I'm pissed. I'm so annoyed. And I walk down the hall, and I get to the end of the hall to the office, and I look in the window, and I go, where's Susanna? Because that was, the boss in charge. And this really cute boy looks up at me and goes, oh, she's not here. And I swear I will never forget this to the day I die. I swear on everything. We look at each other, and it was literally like magic.
Oh my God.
I looked at him, and I was like, he was like, are you okay? And I was like, yeah, I'm fine. And he's just so cute. He's just green eyes, just really sweet face, pink cheeks, just adorable. And He looks like a combination of like Ryan Gosling and Robert Downey Jr. in like one like dad bod. I know. And I was just looking at him and I was like, okay. And then I like looked at his hand and he didn't have a ring on. So I was like, okay. And then I was like, everything's fine. And then I went back and I didn't think anything else about it. And then I went back later and he was sitting in front of an office window because it was all open floor plan. And it was a glass window where they all faced outside to the rest of the office. And his particular section had fog window on it, like a piece of fog tape on it. So to keep him from being distracted. And I remember like standing on the other side of the fogged window part and saying, is this so I don't distract you? And he just started smiling at me and I was just like, wow, he is super cute. And then I didn't think anything else about it. And then I just kept running into him, but he was really shy. And my nature as just like a beast in all things is just to go after something, like go be an apex predator. And I just was like noticing that even though I felt that energy when we first met, he was like suddenly hoarding it for himself and like not interacting. And then one day I saw him with the ring on. I was like, shit, well, he's married. Forget that. And then he started coming to my office all of a sudden, like out of the blue. He always says, I just got my courage up. And he like started coming to my office and hanging out and talking to me. And I would just listen to him talk. And I would just like, oh my God, I would just goo eyes, listen to him talk. And then I remember I was like absent for a few days. And I didn't tell Jared, my colleague in the office, where I was. I was just like, oh, I'm sick. And he said Alan kept coming every day and being like, is she okay? Is she sick? Like, what does she need? I came back to work and Jared goes, I think he has a crush on you. And I was like, no, he's married. He's like, no, I think like he's getting a divorce. So we finally started talking. He told me that he was, he was separated, probably going to get a divorce. And I realized that I didn't want to be in the middle of that.
Yeah.
Because I didn't feel like it was healthy, and I was like 32 and I was already like, I was still doing my thing. I wasn't holding on to it. And I had worked myself into this notion that I never get what I want when it comes to men. And then now looking back, I'm glad.
The universe is protecting us. I mean, I look back at all the guys who I wanted so bad, and now I'm like, thank you, God.
Yes.
You knew so much better than I did.
For so many reasons.
Yeah,
There's one guy that he's just like, he just aged terribly. He looks like spoiled milk now. You know what I mean? Like, he looks like spoiled milk. And another guy that was just like a horrible drunk and would never be able to settle down because he's on this adventurous kick. And this guy was like, at the time, the love of my life, but just like not a real human person, like not a real boy, like just a weird, stretched, grown version of a child. Like, just,
he was a baby man.
He was a baby man. Still is a baby man. I mean, like, he's baby man. So I was like, okay, I'm not going to push this. I'm going to continue to just be his friend and be what a friend is. Okay. I can have a crush on him, but we're going to be friends. And we would talk for hours on the phone. We would go and have dinner. We would nothing would ever happen. We go to concerts.
So how long did this go on?
Honestly, for like 4 years. Because,
4 years.
Well, he'll never admit it, but for like at least a year and a half, he's trying to get his family back together.
Okay.
And he'll say himself, if you sat him down, he'd say it was an ego thing. Like, he's the man, and how dare she make the decision to make their marriage not work and take his son from him. And like, he had his own issues in that relationship. So it was very much like an ego thing for him that he had to make it work because he's from the South and that's just what men do. And I didn't know those things. I would always sort of like think that those things would happen. And then like one time his boss, who was a busybody, she said, goes, did Alan give you roses? It was like Valentine's Day. And I was like, no, he got me cookies. And then she was, oh, never mind. And he had gotten his ex-wife roses. So I was like, okay. I remember just thinking to myself, that sucks. And I remember, like, I wouldn't speak to him for a week, and he kept coming up to, this is, like, so bad. Like, this was an office romance. I wouldn't speak to him for a week, and I just would ignore him. And then he came into my office and picked me up like Dirty Dancing style. I was obviously a lot skinnier. And the entire office was like, because we had an open floor plan, the entire office was like, so this is inappropriate. And, I eventually left the company. He left the company. We still kept in touch. And then it just started being one of those situations where it was untenable for me because I wanted something more. And he kept saying, I'm not ready.
I mean, that's years.
And so finally I started getting into a relationship in like 2015 was hell. There was like a 6-month period from the end of 2015 to beginning of 2016 that was absolute hell, which I am working on developing and talking about that because it's a story that needs to be told. But like I ended up, 2016 obviously was hell for most 52% of the country. And I feel like I was submitting. I was 36. I was like, this is constantly between work and love. I'm constantly finding a situation where I fuck myself over because I want things to go the way I want them to go and I want things to be successful, but people take advantage and I let them. I was just dealing with like all the ruminations in my head. And I got into this relationship with this 25-year-old who was just like, like he was there. Yeah. And that's the reason why I got there. He was there and he was excited and he liked being around me and he did whatever I asked him to do. And I would just let it happen.
Sometimes you need that. You just need it to be easy.
Yeah.
You just need to be with somebody who's just all about you.
Yeah.
And you just need to have that experience of just feeling cherished and adored and taken care of. And
even if they're a hot mess, it was fine.
Yeah.
He ate SpaghettiOs out of the can. I thought he was the grossest person. But he was the grossest person. But he just like was there and he was sweet and didn't judge me. And I guess around November 2016, I got a phone call from Alan, who had been on like his own spiritual journey and we hadn't spoken in months. And the first call literally went like, hi, how are you? Hi, how are you? I'm great. I'm seeing someone, is him. And I go, I'm living with someone. And then he goes, okay. And then there's like a pause. And then we're like, okay, well, we'll talk to each other later. And then like 2 weeks later, he's like, well, my birthday's coming up. And, I was wondering if you wanted to go out. And I was like, yes, let's go out and do something. And I thought, let's go see the Kanye West concert. This is back when I was a fan. I would not do that today. I wouldn't venture that today. And I asked my boyfriend at the time, I was like, do you want to go see Kanye West? And he was like, no, I don't like him. And he's probably smarter than I am at this point now. And so Alan and I go, and I'm clearly seeing someone, he's seeing someone, and we're at this concert and it's just magic. Again, it's the same kind of magic we always have together. And I'm doing all I can, and I was respectful of my boyfriend at the time, but I just was like, okay, we had a great night, I'll talk to you soon. It keeps going on for weeks where I'm entertaining him, but I'm not letting him think that anything's gonna happen because I'm actually like really falling for this 25-year-old and he to me. And then we get to Valentine's Day, which is so funny because that Valentine's Day where he really hurt my feelings, I always had thought about. And then I get to Valentine's Day, and like Valentine's Day is a week after my birthday, and Adam got me a card and it was like whatever. And on the 15th, Alan calls me and he goes, what are you doing and what did you do for Valentine's Day? And I said, I got a card. He's like, okay. Let's go out for dinner. And I was like, sure. He's like, actually, scratch that. He's like, let me check my calendar and I'll call you back. So I'm like, okay, God, he's such a weirdo. And that's always our dynamic.
I'm like, Alan, get it together. Have a plan when you make the call, Alan.
Not when it comes to me, it's never that way because he's always measuring expectations and emotions. He knows I'm highly emotional. So he texts me after he hangs up, and the text message was like 3 photos. It was a photo of a boat. It was a photo of a family on a boat. It was a car, and it was a house. And he said, which one of these things do you want? And I was like, well, I want all of them, duh. And he goes, would you want it with me? And I was like, yeah, actually. And he's like, well, do you want to get married?
What?
Yeah.
Okay, I thought I knew your love story. I did not know this.
Yeah, he basically was like, and then I called him and I was like, Alan.
What? I can't. Okay, I'm sorry.
I have to save certain parts of it for people.
Oh my God. Wait, oh my God.
And I remember saying, Alan, I had to go outside and talk.
I mean, have you ever even kissed?
Yes. Oh my God. Yes. Oh my God. Yes. Oh my God.
Okay.
Oh my God. Maybe I'm being too PG.
Okay.
Of course, we'd had sex and we hooked up.
Okay.
Oh no, there was a point in the time before before the 2016 and 2015 and all, we'd been intimate multiple times.
Oh, okay.
Oh my gosh. We
Okay.
spent lots of time together, but
Okay.
we were both. It was the first time in my life where I didn't aggressively seek expectation. You know what I mean? Like I guess my whole life majority of my interactions with men have been one night stands. 2 night stands, 3 night stands, but not like a relationship. I've only been in a relationship before Alan like twice.
Okay.
And it was maybe a year, 18 months, 2-3 months, but like on a consistent basis, probably like 18 months was the longest relationship I had.
Okay.
And a lot of that is just being like a sexual assault rape survivor. You just sort of, you know, I always thought I would break the mold. I would, instead of being the kind of woman, like my mother's was raped twice, and she's very, like, she'll tell you herself, she's very frigid, you know, sex is not like, she has no sex drive, like zero, right? And I was like, I'm not going to be like that, because part of the issue growing up is my mom talking about sexuality was very much like, you know, you have genitals, you have genitalia, you know, she taught me all the things you do with it. You clean it, how you clean it, how you take care of it, how you go see the doctor about it. But as far as like, you know, I was reading Demi Moore's memoir recently, and there's a chapter where she talks about, you know, imagine if we had sex ed and they talked about intimacy. So instead of talking about like
mechanics,
and it goes in here or it comes out there, you talked about like, okay, when you feel yourself, when you're having self-love, how does that feel? And when you're exploring someone else's body, what is that like? And instead it was like, it's basically like mechanics, what it does, all those things, and then shame. And that's what we're programmed into. And I just really hope one day we can get to a place where we don't talk about sexuality like that anymore.
I think it's changing.
I think it's changing.
Not in schools, but in culture.
Yes.
And in the cultural conversation about sex and body positivity and pleasure. And like having sex with yourself and exploring that and all of that. So
I was always very interested in those things, and not in a perverted manner. I just felt like I'm experiencing things and I want these things, and everybody keeps telling me it's bad. Oh my God. But everybody's doing it, so why can't I feel good about it? And to this day, I have a very positive outlook on sex. Like I'm very sex positive.
Me too.
I'm just into it. Like I like it. And I don't think it defines me, but I definitely think it's a characteristic of me. You know what I mean? Because
it's the most natural thing in the world.
Yes. That's why I don't feel weird about it.
You shouldn't.
Or smoking weed. They're natural things.
Yeah, I know. I also smoke weed. I love it. You've been my best friend in my head for a long time.
Oh, babe. Thank you. Well, now we're best friends in real life.
Yeah, I'm so
good. So no, we'd definitely been.
Okay, all right. Okay, I missed that part because I thought you were just hanging out totally as friends with this undercurrent of like attraction that you hadn't really addressed.
He made me wait for, I think from the time we first met was like a year.
Okay.
And then it was very much like he said to me, and like maybe a year after that, he was like, do you know how hard it is to be falling out of love with someone and falling in love with someone at the same time? And I said, I don't know. I don't know anything what that's like because I've never experienced it. So you have to tell me. He's like, it's really confusing. He's like, it's really confusing. So I was like, okay, obviously going through a lot of shit. And I also felt like, what if this is just one of those things that never happens? I'm accustomed to things not going my way. So I'm not even like going to venture into a situation as strong as I feel because our emotions were so strong. It was so painful for me. I could feel him and he could feel me. We talk about it. Like we were existing, our relationship was pure lust and passion and connectiveness on like an astral plane because we could feel each other.
Right.
When I got to the point where I couldn't stand not speaking, because I'm also very defiant, so I wasn't like gonna call him. He had to call me if he wanted to talk to me.
Yeah.
He would, I would wait till I couldn't take it anymore. And right when I thought I was going to call him, he'd call me. And it was like, we're very stubborn. We're fixed signs. He's a Scorpio, I'm an Aquarius, so we're very stubborn.
I'm a Scorpio,
and so then it's your season. Congrats for that. But just knowing as a Scorpio, you're a Scorpio woman, and like he's a Scorpio male, and like just his energy and my energy were always just like sort of sitting where we were going to be. And
okay, let's get back to these text messages.
Yes, the text messages. Okay.
I can't believe he's like proposed to you via text.
Proposing to me via text. Like, no. I mean, then he ultimately proposed to me in real life. But then I remember walking outside and being like, are you drunk? My husband's sober. So I was like, are you drunk? And he was like, no. He's like, she's like, I'm done. Like, I just don't want to wait anymore. He's like, we're best friends. We love each other. We're in love with each other. He's like, it doesn't make any other sense other than to get married. And I was like, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Like, what are we doing?
Wow.
And I just remember he was like, can you come over? And I said, yes. And I remember the next day I went over, and I'm such an asshole. I always feel so bad for Adam, who was my boyfriend at the time. I was like to Adam, I was like, I gotta go see my girlfriend. She's going through a rough time. I need to stay at her house.
And you're living with him at the time.
I feel so bad. But it it was just like, he understood, and ultimately he got it once we worked through all of it. And I remember going to see Alan, and I remember just being at his house and spending like the entire day.
Bye, Adam, I'm going to see my fiance.
Yes, I'm going to see my fiance. No, but this is what happened. He was like, I went over there and did that one night, and then he texted me like a day later and was like, I have to go on a business trip to New York. Do you want to get together? And I was like, well, I'm busy. It was like Oscar season. I was doing a bunch of stuff, and I was like, no, I can't, but I want to, but I can't. Then he says, okay. And then he just sent me a picture of my ring that I have now. And I said, what is this? And he was like, it's your engagement ring. If you want it, you need to come to New York and get it. And I was like, why do I have to come to New York and get it? And he's like, because that's where I'll be on business, and that's where we can seal the deal. And I was like, okay. So then I like got on a plane and went to New York. Yes, because I was like, I wanted to see with him. I wanted to be with him. And we spent 3 days in New York, and like, it was just like super magical. We were in this hotel room the size of like a literal shoebox the entire time. When he wasn't with me, he was at work. And I just remember being like, this is insane. And at the same time being like, this is totally got to be not real. And then it just kept going. And then we just kept going. And then he moved. And then I had to tell Adam, I'm engaged. And he was like, what the fuck?
Whoa.
And I was like, I'm sorry. I was like, but this is not my ex per se, but he's the love of my life. And we're going to get married. And I have to end this. And I ended it. And it was really uncomfortable because he still needed to stay at the house for 6 weeks. So I spent more time at Alan's house. And then Alan moved in. And then the real shit started, because like now we're living together, and I was like, okay, holy shit, now we're living together. And like, he got laid off, and I started, and like now it was like fully, I was in a space where like I am fully now engaged. I'm engaged now. Like I'm engaged to this guy. And I would have to say, like, the learning about each other, like we learned so much about each other over the years. And the learning about each other really kicked into high gear.
Once you were living together and you were engaged?
I was like, okay.
I mean, bet. Oh my God.
We still learn about each other.
Yeah. I think it's a lifelong process.
I would rather it be a lifelong process than us just being bored about what we think we know about each other.
Well, also you change, right? Like, so if you're not changing, if you're not growing, then,
he thinks that, one of the things that was evident in the beginning of a relationship is that I always had his back. Mm-hmm. So if he had a problem, or he wanted to complain about the divorce, the separation, or the co-parenting situation, he knew he can come to me, and he knew that I would have his back.
Yeah.
And I was like, babe, I had your back because I wanted to be with you. So that was an immaturity on my part. Like, I'm mature now. So like and plus I'm your wife now. So I'm locked in. So it's different now. Like, now I'm going to call you on your shit a little bit more.
Yeah.
And that's one of our biggest issues, is that he thinks that I think that he's different than when we first got together. And he thinks that I'm different too. And I'm like, we're not different. We started messing with each other. He was 29. I was 32. I'm a couple years, or 31. And you were a young dad. I mean, his son, wasn't more than probably a year old when we met.
Oh, wow.
My stepson now is 9. Mm-hmm. And I said, you were a new dad, young dad in California, which is like most men are not 29
in LA.
Daddy, not in LA. So you don't have like a lot of friends on your level, because they are not trying to be with kids. They don't hang out with kids. They don't hang out with parents. They are getting drunk every night, and he's sober, and it's hard for him. And you live outside of the city. He literally lived in the border of Ventura County and LA County. So I was like, you're just not
very
in the
different.
mix. Very different. And I was like right there in the middle of it, like going to these parties, doing all these things. And I think for us to be so different and to connect on so many different things, one of the things that I think that we both say like made us super comfortable with each other is the fact that, he's from the South. So he's a huge Southern upbringing. My grandparents were Southern, and they were a huge influence. My great grandparents and my grandparents, huge influence on me. And, at the end of the day, like, our value system is that we want family. Mm-hmm. We want togetherness. We want to grow and build. And, those values at the heart of it were, I'm glad our relationship wasn't based on sexuality and like always being about sex. Like, we were best friends first.
Yeah.
So it's hard for me to like stay mad at him about anything, because he's my best friend.
Yeah.
Wow.
This is like it's like a twist on When Harry Met Sally.
Yes, it's 100%. I always say that we're very much like that because we went through different phases. I definitely was a different person when I first met him. I was way more loud, obnoxious, didn't care, reckless, and now I'm a little too safe. And it doesn't make me less fun or interesting, but it's like I'm more determined to like make plans happen. And I think part of being like rowdy was like a big thing for him. He was super attracted and drawn to that. I don't necessarily think that energy is dead. I just think that
you're still pretty raucous.
I'm still pretty ruckus. But I'm like, okay, but I'm someone's wife and I don't need him getting a phone call from the like the desk captain being like, yeah, we got her in the cell. Come bail her out. I don't need him getting that call. I just want to like, I want him to feel like no matter what, like she was wild and out of control and now she's still has that same energy, but without getting us into like trouble.
Yeah. Oh my God. That's a crazy story.
Yeah.
I can't believe like, yeah, you went from being friends to being engaged.
We went from friends to being engaged with no real relationship in between that.
Yeah.
I mean, we slept with each other a bunch and we liked each other a lot. We loved each other though, but we loved each other. We would say like, I love you.
Yeah.
And it was on a metaphysical level, but it was also like, he said to me, I don't want anybody to hurt you. I don't want anybody to mess with you. Like, I want to protect you. And I feel the same way. To me, that's the basis of a healthy marriage. You know what I mean? Like, it's not perfect, but on a healthy level.
There is no perfection.
There is no perfection.
Yeah.
I genuinely like him as a person.
That's awesome. That's I think people really forget about that.
Yeah.
Liking like I was just talking about this the other day, maybe on a podcast, so people might have heard me say this, but it's always surprising to me when people are dating someone and they don't feel good when they're with that person. Like they don't actually, they feel out of sorts or they feel on edge or they feel like they can't be themselves. They can't, but they still want to stay in that relationship and they still, and I'm like, how do you want to feel in your life? Don't you want to wake up and feel like you're with somebody who you can be yourself and they see you and love you for who you are? And
but
like,
I don't think that anybody's ever really thought about like, what if you chose to deal with yourself and only yourself?
Yeah.
And that was something that I thought I was doing when I wasn't committing to relationships with men, that I would go out and sleep with men that were, I wouldn't say out of my league. I think I'm amazing.
You are.
Thank you. But I would date, like, I'm also like I like good looking men. And I would always be seeking out like super hot guys. And it wouldn't be hard to get them. But I didn't want anything more than that because I didn't ever want to have to think about beyond the bedroom. That was too much of a conversation. You know, most of these guys were dumb, you know, so having a conversation beyond, which is why it was so interesting to date a 25-year-old. He was a 5'4" Jewish boy and he looked like my son next to me. And I was like, well, that's probably why I really wanted Alan. Even when I was in this relationship and I hadn't thought about him that much because I was trying not to, I still thought at the end of the day, this is great because I actually like Adam. He may not be the cutest guy on earth, but he's sweet, nice, loves me, and cares about me and protects me. And I said, who else? Well, that's Alan. But Alan, I actually enjoy looking at.
In addition
to all those things.
Yeah.
And that's who I want to be with. And that's just sort of like, it's been the whole thing with us is like we enjoy being around each other, and when we don't. But I don't think we can put too much else on our relationship because, like I said, no matter what, you get mad at your best friends, and it's an exercise for me because if I get mad at someone, my immediate response is to flee. I don't want to have any conflict. I mean, I love conflict, but if I care about you, I don't want to have conflict.
Then it's just scary.
It's scary. So I'm like, okay, I don't want to upset you with how upset I am. So maybe I just don't talk about it, or we just don't engage in it at all. And
that might be a really good strategy for you though.
I think it's a better strategy for me than most people.
Yeah. Just to let your emotions run that course. And then you can calm, and then you can come back for when you're in a better place.
Yes.
Like that's actually, if you know that about yourself, then that's good.
I learned that about myself, and that's what I have to do with Alan. Because I don't want, you know, if I'm the most upset at him about anything, none of it is like, get out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Totally.
Like there has to be like a severe violation. And so far we have not had that. And I don't believe we'll have that because he's one of the most loyal people I've ever met. But I have to like take a break.
Yeah, that communication is what's key. Just to let you know, I'm sort of that way too. Like when in the moment when I'm getting really upset, I tend to shut down. Yeah, because I just need time to process it.
It's a very Scorpio thing,
and then I can talk about it.
Right.
And I think, and my boyfriend, he understands that now. But at the beginning, when we were like learning each other, figuring each other out, he's like, "Why aren't you saying anything?" And I'm like, "Oh, you don't want me to say anything."
And that's how you're a Scorpio. That's how Alan is. You don't want me to say anything.
You really want to let me settle down.
And that's what I learned about him, because immediately, you know, I'm like, why, or this or that, and then I said, you know what, I'm gonna be out of my mind, and then he'll come out and say something like, maybe it's the next day, maybe it's 2 weeks later, maybe it's a month later, and I'll be like, why are you just saying? And now I've gotten used to it. Like one day things just tumble out.
Totally. Yeah.
He's so like, and I'm like, okay, Alan.
I'm totally like that too.
It's a Scorpio thing.
I'm like, remember that thing we were talking about a month ago? I'm ready to talk about it.
Yes. Like the other day, he came and he said, and by the way, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, did we talk about that like a month ago? And he was like, yes. And then he just walked in the room and I was like, okay. All right, Alan.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So it's funny. So if this was a movie, if your love story was a movie, I'd love it. I'd watch it, but I'd be like, this is so unrealistic.
It is unrealistic. There's many elements about it that are unrealistic.
I feel like this is like, which is on my previous podcast, we did an episode about romantic comedies.
Yes.
And it was basically my co-host and I, we each picked 3 romantic comedies that we felt were realistic.
Okay.
Like for a romantic comedy.
Yeah.
Like we felt like there was so When Harry Met Sally was one of my picks.
Yes.
And because I think it was very realistic, except for that it worked out in the end.
Except for it worked out in the end. That we know of. Do you think they're still married today?
That's a really good question. I would say probably.
I feel like they don't have kids and all they do is walk around New York. All they do is walk around New York.
I think that they would probably be married because I think they both went through enough. Mm-hmm. That they're like, they don't have that, there's something better out there, maybe like the grass is greener kind of thing, which I think
Plus
people
for their generation, that makes sense. Yeah. That's very much a generational thing. Yeah. I feel like, you know, it's very bold when a couple, what would they be now? Probably like 60-something, mid-60s. Yeah. It's very bold for a couple at that age to decide, nope, I don't want to be married anymore. Yeah. I'm done with this. You kind of just like deal with it.
Or I think it's the people who didn't know each other really well and weren't best friends. Yeah. Those are the people who are like, now that's enough. Yeah. like decades of putting up with your ass and I'm done.
The thing is, it's like, even though we were best friends, I didn't know every single thing about him. Yeah. I didn't know like what his morning routines were like unless we were together, and those were altered and different because I'm not like a morning person. So I'm like, you know, when he gets up, to this day, when he gets up for work, I'm like, no, stay with me. I don't want you to go to work. Like, I never want him to go. But like, I didn't, like, you know, you put on airs. You put on airs, like, when you're trying to court someone. And for him, I think for me to him, I think, you know, I had to expose myself a lot more because I'm very much about presentation. And the thing that I'm happy about in our marriage is that I don't really have to pretend anymore about things. And I think that was shocking for him because I had to come in and put on this. We talk about work being like the central place where we interacted. And every day he saw me being like this badass coming in, dictating shit, making shit happen. Yeah. And now he sees like when I wake up in the morning, doubt. When I'm like come home from the end of the day, doubt. You know, on the weekends, after being out in the world for most of the day, I just want to be like curled up right on that spot of the couch and I don't want to do much else. And he always imagined this world where I was like, yeah, but that's when I was searching. Yeah. I was searching and seeking, and I was, you know, trying to make myself less lonely. You know, I was trying to be everything to all these people, and it became exhausting. And now I was like, I don't have to search or seek togetherness like that anymore because, well, now I have a family, and I have you, and I said, that doesn't mean that now I have to. It's interesting because now it's like a displaced search, seek quality, and now I'm looking for something else to fulfill me because that part being fulfilled. Yeah. It's ultimately, yes, my marriage is great and I have a family now, but like now I'm feeling displaced with my work. Like I feel like the path towards getting married and being focused on, you know, getting this house and doing all these things took me off the path of work. And now, and I got married late. Like, I'm 39, I'll be 40 in February.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like I wanted to wait. I was like, let's just do it. Let's just get right into it, you know? And why put any more time in between this inevitability? Like, we are destined to be together.
Yeah.
And yeah, now I feel like, you know, my focus is now on work. 'Cause it's weird once you, like, you're with this person that you love and you want to be with them, but now you just want to, like, protect you do everything you can to protect that.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a great position to be in because you have that secure base.
Yeah.
And now you can, like, you can go out, you can be bold,
Yes.
you can try different things because you always know you have that foundation of that relationship and that love to support you.
Yes.
Because I definitely feel that way too, like, about my
How long
relationship.
have you been with your guy?
So we've only been together for a year and a half.
That's still
so,
good.
Like, so it's not a super long time, but we have like the opposite scenario because we met on the street. Literally, we had both been at a screening at Soho House in West Hollywood. And I lived in West Hollywood at the time. I was walking home. He was with his brother. They were about to call an Uber on the corner. And his brother recognized me from the screening and was like, oh, hey, how'd you like the movie? And then that's how we started talking.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, but because I hadn't seen them in there or anything. But anyway, we had our first date probably like about a week later.
Oh, wow.
And we've been together. We've been together since our first date. Like, there was no like, oh, hey, should we do this? There was no.
That's amazing.
It was just literally just like, okay, well, we're together now.
What sign is he?
He's a Pisces.
Interesting. I think that makes perfect sense.
So because we went right into the commitment, I think it's definitely accelerated the like that confidence that like, oh yeah, we're just doing this, like it's you and me, like there's no ambiguity there, right? And so taking all that ambiguity out of, because it's the only relationship I've ever been in where there was no ambiguity. You know? And it's so freeing because it's like, oh, I just realized how much of my emotional and mental energy I was actually expending trying to find this partnership. And then it's like, oh, now that it's here, it's like, oh, I feel so much freer now. Like, now I can go out into the world and do all these other things. So
ambiguity is like the relationship killer.
Yeah,
I never questioned, even when he was in the depths of struggling with his sobriety and the dissolution of his marriage, like his first marriage. He always said to me, because I would be like asking him, like, you know, in the course of trying to figure out like why we aren't just boyfriend and girlfriend, I was like, is it me? He'd be like, no. I'd be like, do you want to be with your first wife? And he's like, well, no. And then I'd be like, well, do you just not want to be in a relationship? He's like, no, that's not it either. And he would always be like, nothing I feel about you has changed. Nothing I feel about you is different, has changed. This isn't about you. You know, it's about him. He was like, the way I feel about you has not changed. He would say that to me 5 times a year. Nothing about I felt about you has changed. Yeah. And I just thought that was the sweetest thing because the last thing you want to hear from a guy is he would never say no. He would never say da-da-da. He would always say the right things. And his emotional, like, as much as I get on his case about his EQ, which I do think needs help sometimes, his handling of me before we decided to do all of this stuff was more than I can ask for. Because men who are just honest, it's sexier than anything
It's so
else.
sexy.
Yeah.
God, it's so sexy. It really is. Yeah. I hope that there are some men listening to this taking note.
I really do too, because it's sexy when you're honest.
Yeah.
I've had a man, I mean, I don't think it's sexy in this other guy's case, but I respected him. This guy I dated like years ago that we're still friends, but he said to me, you know, I think we're better as friends. And I think that our relationship is more interesting as friends. I don't think that we work as boyfriend and girlfriend. And I respected him. I was sad because I felt rejected, but I know only 2 men in my life have been honest like that.
That honesty is amazing. The world would be such a different place if people could just... Oh my
God!
And that's one reason why, you know, when someone is talking like, oh, I need closure, I'm trying to talk to my ex and get closure. It's like, you can't seek that out because first of all, that requires them actually knowing why.
Exactly.
And knowing their own truth. And that is a big if. Like,
that's a big if.
That's a big if. But when someone knows like really knows their truth and they can tell you that. That's so powerful.
It's so powerful. And I just felt like Alan, you know, even in seeking all of these answers for his own life, the way he handled that for me, with me, it made a difference. It made me want to linger, even in the course of not knowing where it was going, even when I was still seeing other people and going and seeking out relationships. It wasn't like I knew in the back of my head that this would ever come to fruition. I'm the kind of girl, my mom says you have to have 4 burners going. She said you got the main burner and you got the other burner, 3 burners back there doing their thing. You move them as needed.
Well, you took that advice.
I took that advice. And I had to, you know, the main burner, so poor guy, like I had to be like, just throw the whole thing out.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
No more burners because it's all about Alan.
I've never done that.
You don't have to do it right now, thank God. Yeah. But I mean, I'd never done it either. And it's interesting because I always tell my mom that she gives the worst advice about relationships. Because she's only been married to my dad for like 43 years. And she is, you know, only had like 2 boyfriends before that. So I was like, and you got married in the 70s and were like coming of age before the women's revolution, sexual revolution. So I was like, what do you even know? But then that was, of course, taking her advice is what led me to that. If I'd spent all this time obsessing over Alan the way that I would have done with somebody in the past. Oh yeah,
that would have been bad.
It would have been bad.
It would have been
so
bad.
And I never gave him more than he deserved. Like sometimes I would just drive to his house, which was 40 miles from my house at the time, and show up unannounced. And he would just be baffled. And I'd be like, I just came to say hi because I wanted to say hi, and nothing would even happen. We'd spend the whole night talking. And it was just like, I just needed to see my friend. And I would come with no expectations. And I would just sit there and we would just look at each other. And I would just be like, you know, and sometimes we'd have intimacy and then sometimes we wouldn't. And then it was never one or the other, which is not how I treated relationships before. Most relationships were like, I'm just coming over to have a booty call. And that wasn't the situation here. I just wanted to see my friend.
Wow.
You know?
My God. So what is your advice for like so your mom had the burner advice.
Yeah.
So so I'm sure you have single friends.
I do. And it's so interesting because they always go, I hate when people say, God, I gotta get like your situation, you like made it happen. And it was like, no, we made it happen. And I said, don't ever try to seek a relationship like you see other people have.
That's good advice.
Yeah, don't, because everything is designed for yourselves. Like different relationships work out for people differently. So like, I think don't ever look to somebody to be like, I hate the term relationship goals. You don't know what people are going through.
That is the truest thing. And I can't, it's actually shocking to me how many people they're so smart.
Yeah.
And they're so aware, but they still get caught up. They still see a picture on Instagram or Facebook, and they still think that is the representation.
It's not.
Of like, and I'm just like, you like stop.
You know why? Because I'll tell you what the blame is. Ever since they started putting couples' names together.
Yeah, Bennifer, that was the first one, right?
Bennifer or Brangelina. Ever since they started doing that, you started like thinking that people walk around like operating as like one unit. And I'm very much still an individual.
Right.
And you know what I mean? Like, and I very much am still like, you know, I'm on a path of togetherness with my husband and my family, and then I'm on a path, I'm still doing my path. And my path is actually harder than the marital path because I'm always going to be an individual and I have to fight for that individuality. You know, my husband is super traditional. So, you know, the only thing that he's not traditional about is the fact that I'm the breadwinner. The expectation maybe in the 80s is that my husband with his corporate job being in charge of people would make more money than me, but I, sought a different path that's more lucrative. And so that alters the gender dynamics a little bit because it's like, for me, I'll tell you where our biggest conflict is, and that's why I feel like relationship goals are stupid. Our biggest conflict is like my expectations for what he should be responsible for in the household comes completely because I make the most money. So it's like, I don't have to wash dishes because guess what? I, run this place.
Right.
And then it makes him feel like, oh, okay, I kind of feel like a piece of shit.
Or like emasculated.
So I have to like, we have to like, we're continuously like trying to weave through those gender roles. Yeah. Because I don't want him to feel emasculated. I want him to feel empowered. But I also don't want him to think that, you know,
I'm going to make the money and clean the house and do the, I'm not going to do it all.
I'm not going to do it all. And he doesn't for the most part. But it's like, you know, those are sort of like the dynamics that we are working through, which I think we're doing a pretty good job of.
And so many people, so many couples, so many women are working on that now. And I think it's great. And I think it's like, it's good to have those conversations because there are so many women who are so progressive in so many ways, but they still cling to a very old-fashioned dynamic in terms of that sort of thing. You know, this man's got to make up more money than me and all this. And I remember literally, like, I had this client and she made like $450,000 a year, you know, and she was like, I just need to be with someone who makes more money than I do. And I was like, well, let's talk about why.
Yeah.
Because you make more money
than a lot of people.
A lot of people. So like, let's talk about why that's important, you know? And she's like, well, I don't want somebody who's going to take advantage of me or whatever. I was like, okay, so you want somebody who's not going to take advantage of you.
Yeah. Yeah. Just say that.
Like, say that rather than he has to make more money than you because
he can still make more money than you and take advantage of you.
Exactly.
And that's the thing is like I let him do the things that he wants to do to fix things, you know, make big decisions on our behalf, you know, make choices that I don't feel like dealing with, pay the bills, do all those things. I let him do all those things. I don't get in his way about it. I don't get fussy about it because I know I'm not good at those things. So I'm like, go and make those for the family. Like, go and do it. Like, obviously consult with me, but like, go and, you know, make those decisions. I will listen to you. And, you know, like relationship goals. I guess my advice is like, stop thinking that because what you see on television, I think we're a little bit getting out of that. Like, I remember it used to be like a really big thing and it's not. And I feel like one of the best examples of that is looking at Jennifer Aniston and how she conducts her life. Like, that man, whom I love. I do love Brad Pitt, but I do love them, but we don't know what the intricacies of the relationship. But the fact that we looked at them, him and her, as like this golden couple of Hollywood, their marriage fell apart. He married whom he thought was maybe his real true love of his life. They go and have all these kids, and we are just going to assume that their lives have fallen into place and we'll never find true love and She's taken her life as it has come to her. And yes, I know these people are very wealthy and rich, but I'm not surprised that Brad and Angelina are like wallowing in their own personal misery because they're just not living in their truth. You are not always going to have every single day of my and Alan's lives are not like amazing. There are days when I want to murder him. There are days when he wants to murder me. But we love each other and we love the journey. And it's about the journey, like our goals together and apart. Like we still have, there are things he likes to do. I don't, things I like to do, he does not. Friends he has I hate, friends of mine he's not fans of. We have to still have individual lifestyles and come together on the stuff that matters.
Hashtag relationship journey.
Relationship journey.
I talk about it as like co-creating, you know, because it's like, it's not, you're not just gonna walk into something that's like perfectly everything you ever wanted it to be and it's magical and it's a happy fairy tale ending. It's like, no, that's you have to co-create the relationship you want, which means it's active, like it's active.
Yes, it's active.
on both of your parts, which is why when you are with somebody who's not actively investing and doing that and putting that work in, that's not, you're not going to have a happy relationship.
You're not going to have a happy relationship. And people who keep secrets and people who do like shady stuff, not only to you, but to themselves, is not healthy. And I think we just have to always, you know, we have this thing where like every few months he knows I'm very loquacious. I have lots of thoughts. And he's not a big like sit down and have like a 5-hour cry fest about it. But we will, you know, I'll write him a letter and say, these are how I'm feeling right now. These are the things I need to happen. And he, being analytical and being like, you know, the way he is, he takes action items from that and says, okay, I need to focus on these things to make you happy or to make us happy or to make me happy. And I'm like, great. You take action items. I write these long, emotional like testimonies, and he's like, action items, checklist, punch list.
Right,
and I'm
right.
like, whatever it takes.
Yeah.
As long as it gets into your brain.
Yeah. Oh my God, I love that. That's amazing. Oh my goodness. Wow.
I hope
Okay.
this is important. I hope this is
this is fantastic.
Okay,
this is
good.
so good. I really appreciate you being so transparent and like, sharing all of this because this is
Good.
personal, but this is amazing.
We didn't even talk about the fact that we're different races and how that plays into
I mean, I kind of wanted to ask. I kind of wanted to ask you about that. Yeah,
Ask,
because
please.
as a Black woman who is married to a white man,
Yeah.
obviously people have opinions about that.
Yes.
And how has that been for you?
It's interesting because I didn't think anything. Obviously, I didn't think anything of it. The fact of the matter is, I don't know why I've always been attracted to white men. It started to bother me, maybe right before I met Alan. Actually, it started to bother me because I was thinking to myself, "Shit, man! Like, I don't know how I'm going to reconcile my militancy, like being militant."
Because you are pretty militant.
Yes, and being with a white dude. But I'd been lucked out. Like, I'd always been sort of, well, at least so I thought. I found out things about the men that I've been with in the past lately, just from like things I've heard from other people. Like, some men I've heard have become like Trump voters or were Trump supporters, whatever. And I don't care. I was never trying to like do anything but sleep with them. So I don't care. But like, I thought to myself, maybe around 2012, right around the time, like it's interesting because I had an initial crush on Alan, but I also had a crush on another Alan at work. He was Black.
Okay.
And he just rejected me so hard.
Oh, interesting.
He rejected me so hard. And that's when I was like, and you just reminded me of something in this conversation. I remember like white Alan caught wind that Black Alan had taken me on a date, and white Alan like came and whispered in my ear, and he was like, this is really when it started heating up, and he was like, he don't even know how to handle you. He has no idea, I can tell. And I was like, oh my God. But like, I just felt like Black men had never, ever seemed interested in me on a deeper level, on like a deeper connection type level. Mm-hmm. And I think it's because they think that I think for the most part, it's weird, my relationship with Black men, because my father's my best friend. Mm-hmm. And my father is one of the best representations of Black men, especially from his generation. My dad I can talk to my dad about anything. He was a provider. He was good husband. He is a good husband. He's a good provider, good, amazing father to my sister and I. So I couldn't understand, like, why am I not attracted to Black men? Mm-hmm. And then I thought to myself, when I was going through this whole exercise in the beginning with Alan, I was like, shit, I ended up being with him. This is going to be great because, we are so into each other and we both feel the same way about things on, when it comes to racial equality and all those other things. But then Trump got voted into office and we never talked because we were so caught up in the throes of marriage and engagement and like planning of the wedding and everything. We never really talked about political, like affiliations, like where we sat on things. I know he voted for Hillary, but we never talked about him. And then it wasn't until we got married that my husband felt comfortable talking to me about being a moderate conservative. And I was like, okay, you're progressive. He kept saying his parents are progressive. And I was like, I don't know what that means.
Yeah, what does that mean?
What does that mean?
Yeah.
You're progressive in what way? Progressive for white people to me is like, would I let a Black person cross my threshold and ask them questions before I shot them, or versus like shooting them just right on sight because they walk across the street? That to me is what there is no. I'm so serious. Like, I don't know what that means. Everybody has different definitions for what that is. Mm-hmm. And then, one of the biggest things that has been hard for him, which I feel zero pity for, is that he feels ever since Trump got into office that he's been prejudged and that he is not able to say the things that he feels because he doesn't want to offend somebody by using the wrong pronoun or by doing this, that, and the other when it comes to like jokes and stuff like that. And I was like, and I had to tell him, I was like, babe, and he's pretty conscious for the most part, but there's always with white people still that part. And he gets mad when I say that, but I was like, babe, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter, for some people that your wife is Black. There are people that are racist as fuck and still married to black women, sleep with black women.
I know, which is so
weird.
It's so weird.
It's so weird. And I'm like, I know that you aren't like that, but there is always going to be a part of you that has white privilege.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll tell you the thing that has been most interesting more than that, because we get past all that. We talk about our issues. We talk about the things that anger each other. I allow him to say his piece. He lets me have the floor when I need to. But I think what's more interesting is that I feel protective of my blackness. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Overprotective of it. Mm-hmm. I feel like his white joy annoys me sometimes. And I noticed it over the summer. I noticed it over the summer because I felt like he has space to be, I've seen more than anything what he can get away with. That I could never get away with.
Yeah.
The things that he's not actively trying to get away with something. That's just all he knows.
Yeah.
One case in particular is we went to Hawaii, and it's annoying, to even be complaining about this, but he can jump in the ocean, and all I'm thinking about are sharks, drowning, hair. You know what I mean? And I'm like, oh, he has so much fucking freedom. I hate it. And then that's one thing. It's so true.
It is true.
The other thing was when you rent a car, you know how when they make you rent a car, you got to sign up for all the insurance, even though nothing will happen. But they always say, if you take out a full tank, you bring back a full tank. He brought back a quarter tank. And I said, babe, you got to fill that tank up because they're going to charge my card and blah, blah. He's like, no, they won't, blah. They didn't even do it. It was they didn't check the car. They didn't look around it.
Really?
No. And with me, one time I got literally, I would say my thumb to my fingernail, a scratch, and they wanted to charge me $700 for it. And I was like, that's not even a real thing.
Oh
and
my God.
My husband brings his car back, drives over the mileage, brings it with the quarter tank. They don't even think anything about it. And people will say what are you saying? But that's a microaggression.
Yeah.
It's the
so
trust.
Interesting. It's so interesting. My partner is also white. And though he's not American, which I think...
Where's he from?
He's from Australia.
Yeah, it's different.
It's a little bit different, and it's actually interesting because in Australia they have this thing.
The Aboriginal. No, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, they have that, but also just culturally in Australia, it's this thing you have to be really humble, and you can't stand out too much, and you can't whatever. And so it's interesting because within our relationship, I'm the one who's really entitled.
Oh wow, interesting because you're American,
and because I'm American, and it's so funny, and it's and I actually because even recently I accidentally called someone in Iceland. I thought she was in Canada, and so I called this number. I thought it was Canada, which is part of my data plan. Yeah. But I had this 45-minute conversation with someone in Iceland, and I was like, oh shit. I was like, oh, it's fine. I'll just call AT&T and I'll just get them to take it off the bill. Yeah. And he was like, why would they do that? And I was like, because I'm a good customer. Because I was like, how much money I paid them, over the last, 10 years I've been a customer. I was like, it's nothing to them. Of course they're going to take it off my bill. And he's just he can't, things like that, blow his mind, or, sending back a dish because, the food isn't right.
Oh, my God.
He won't do it. And I'm just like, no, I'm not paying for that. I have this, real, entitlement about stuff. So it's funny because in that sort of thing, we're reverse. But he also does have freedom. But it's more things we'll talk about, when I was in college, for instance, I didn't really party.
Oh, interesting.
When I was in college, I studied.
Oh, wow.
I studied, I worked.
Yeah.
I was...
what college did you go to?
I went to Syracuse.
Yeah. I mean, it's cold there. So it was all you were going to do is drink and hang out at...
But it's a party school, right?
Yeah,
so that's what a lot of people do. And so he's just because he partied, and he's a PhD, he's a biologist, he's a scientist, whatever. He was fine. He was able to balance all that, but he's in Australia, he likes to drink, he likes to party and all this stuff. And he's to me, he's I can't believe you he's almost sad for me that I didn't spend all of college getting drunk he did. And I was like, you're a white man.
Yeah. You have time.
I can't be a black woman in school partying and getting drunk all the time.
Yeah.
That's not an option for me.
No. You have to make use of your time there.
I'm that's not an option. So I think things like that, I'm you had the freedom to you could do that. You could fuck up. You could be a drunken idiot and have all these funny stories about all your drunken idiot escapades. I couldn't have done that.
No, not at all.
The way that I would have been perceived if I had done that is not an option for me.
Exactly.
So I think it's things like that but he's getting it now.
Well, I think it's he has an excuse. He was in Australia, and Australia is just different. They have crazy insects I don't like looking at. They let anything go. They don't care if a crocodile walks in your house. They're weird about that. I'm weird about it. They're cool with it. No, I just noticed those things but he doesn't notice them because I tell him all the time that like black people in the South are different than black people on the West Coast.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I said
my mom's family's from the South.
So you understand.
Yeah.
Like I said, there's a different level of interaction. He's like, no, that's not true. And I was like, no, it is true. I said, I've been going to the South my whole life. I see the way black people interact, if they interact at all with white people. And the way it's been set up is it's in service of. Like, they wait till you leave to talk all kinds of shit about you. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? But in front of you, you know what I mean? Like, they, it's like in service of. And I said, in the West Coast, I think the best interpretation of black people on the West Coast are like the Black Panthers or like an Ice Cube and an Eazy-E. Like, these are the we were sick and tired of the shit. Mm-hmm. And that's why a lot of black people moved to the West Coast. They wanted some independence. They wanted to get out of it.
Freedom.
They wanted to have freedom. Mm-hmm. Abject freedom. A natural joy just to be able to live their lives without being oppressed. Mm-hmm. And it's an oppressive state to live over there. When I went to North Carolina, I felt oppressed.
Yeah. Oh, I hate going. My mom's family's from Alabama.
Oh, God.
I hate going there.
I hate it.
No offense to anybody who's listening in Alabama.
No offense.
But it's just, to me, I'm like, it's not comfortable for me.
It's not comfortable. Mm-hmm. It's not, I was just in Mississippi for my podcast, Waiting to Exhale. And, I had all these preconceived notions, even though I've been there before, but I don't know what the climate is because for all intents and purposes, the woman who's your senator is a goddamn racist and like wants to see people hung to this day in the town square. And, I don't like being around that energy. Mm-hmm. And
yeah, me neither.
I don't want my people around that energy, but I also feel like I grew up in San Francisco and I grew up in a town where diversity and inclusivity was just what we were. Mm-hmm. So when people have these preconceived notions, it's annoying. He doesn't have any of that, but I think he's very startled by how much I don't trust white people.
Interesting.
He's very surprised by that. And I was like, it's not about you, babe.
Yeah.
It's about the general distrust of white people. I'm like, look at your situation. I was like, his first marriage, you were put up, it was you against this entire family of people on his ex-wife's side of the family. Mm-hmm. And I was like, it was only, and you're out here by yourself with no allies. Mm-hmm. You have no friends. She has your son. She has a huge family. They all think that you're this, that, and the other. I was like, I said, it's not something. I think the reason why we clung to each other so hard is because just like the alienation that he felt, and something that I'm hearing from a lot of women who aren't black is that a lot of my white girlfriends and non-white girlfriends, but not black, are saying like, ever since Trump, ever since the awakening, the opening, I'm just learning more and more how much I need black women in my lives, in our lives, because I can't trust white women, and I can't trust, I get this truth from a black woman before I get it from a white woman. And I was like, maybe y'all are just waking up to just like, who really the true queens of this earth is. Like, it's been this way forever. Distant, shoot, Gone with the Wind, Butterfly McQueen. Like, she wasn't just a mammy. She was the confidant. She took care of everything. She was the one you could trust. I said, that wasn't just like a movie. That was a dynamic. It's a dynamic
that's existed for a long time.
It's how we've always been.
Yeah. So interesting. Oh my gosh. This is amazing. I have one more question for you.
Please. Sorry, I know I'm talking. I'm so loquacious.
No, I know. That's why I'm like, listen, girl, we need to get you a podcast. This is called Winter.
I know. I'm working on it.
So if you had a megaphone that was loud enough for the whole world to hear, and you could send out one message about love, what would that message be?
Save it for the ones who deserve it. Protect it. Hold it super close to you. Don't share it with everybody. And protect the love that you give out. Protect it. I feel like love is so important and it's special, but you can't have love for everything. You can't have love for everyone. So you really have to be so sure about who you're going to put your love into. Mm-hmm. Be specific about who you put your love into and how much. Even to this day with my husband, I put in all my love and he has like a vat of it. But like, he needs to hold on to that love. He can't drip. He can't let one drip fall out, because he needs to hold on to it and protect it and make it precious. And I feel like that's the way you should treat love, especially with someone that you're in a relationship with. You can't forgive people for every time they repeatedly do something. You can't, smooth things over just with love, because love conquers all. It does all those things, but you need to make sure that it's protected and you protect the love that's given to you.
I love that. Thank you, Winter.
Welcome. This has been amazing. You're wonderful.
You are.
Thank you for this. This has been a great way to end the week for me.
Oh, good. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You're the best.
You're the best. Thank you.
And there you have it, my conversation with Winter Mitchell-Rohrbaugh. I told you that story is crazy, right? Like, that should not have had a happy ending. It just goes to show you that sometimes when a relationship is meant to be, it will be despite the odds if you have the patience. And I wouldn't generally encourage anyone to hang in there the way that Winter did. But, listen, it worked out for her. And that is a beautiful, beautiful thing. Please be sure to check the show notes for links to all of Winter's social media and to her podcast and much more, including all of the links to stay in touch with me. Haha, yes. I am at Dear Franny on all social media, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all the places. And the podcast is at Dear Franny Podcast on Instagram and Facebook. And yes, I did that on purpose to make my life even easier. So I really, really, really appreciate you. For those of you who have taken the time to rate and review the podcast, thank you so very much. I appreciate you. For those of you who are listening from all around the world, thank you so much. I appreciate you. And those of you who are listening right here in the US of A, I appreciate you too. I appreciate you all. So thank you. I don't take it for granted that your time is precious and you have spent a bit of it with me today. So with all of my gratitude, have a beautiful day wherever you are in the world. Till next time.